Mike McCool here. I'm in the Royal Examiner studio, and with me today is Gary Kushner. Gary is an outspoken citizen activist here in our community.
I'd like to say I'm a public advocate.
Very well, that was my next phrase. Gary is well researched, has an opinion, likes to get it out there, and wants to have the people keep the public informed. A lot of people agree with you, a lot of people disagree with you, but I think that's what keeps the dialogue going, and that's what we're trying to do here is let's get the dialogue going.
But there's a lot of untruths out there, Mike, and I'd like to come and try and set this record straight.
Well, he brings a folder of facts, so and I reached out to Gary. I said, I know that the press conference that the town called last week got a lot of people up in arms, and of course the county did a polite response. And but Gary only gets 3 minutes at the council meetings to go over a few more than 3 minutes worth of material. So I thought I'd give Gary an opportunity to get to 3+ minutes, and then on Monday night's council meeting, he'll give him the 3-minute version. So
and I appreciate it, Mike. At the meeting the other night, I could hardly sit in my seat.
I know
listening to that garbage.
I could see you there, biting at the bit, and you wanted to speak out, but they cut you. They didn't allow anyone to speak.
Well, the mayor offered. He said, "Do we have any questions?" Well, I had questions and comments, but he wasn't specific enough to direct it to just the press people there.
Right. So, what say you?
Well, at the press conference the other night, instead of simply advertising the details of a loan term sheet offered by the United Bank to pay off the police department debt, the town's interim manager and council members launched into criticism and insults for the EDA and the County Board of Supervisors, and in my opinion, consciously misrepresented the truth. Now, it's rumored that the local Republican committee did a poll and found out that the majority of the public wasn't happy with the town's response to the police department debt, and they were concerned that there were going to be repercussions in the upcoming election. So that press release last Wednesday and the comments by those council members were an obvious response to that. They're trying to make up for lost ground. And I and many others in the audience were shocked that the interim manager and council comments could be made with such a straight face, because they were just so antithetical to the truth. While council claims to be a cooperative body, they haven't learned the lesson that you get more bees with honey than vinegar. Instead, they chose to show their butts at the meeting, and no doubt at the guidance of their puppet master, the interim manager. And Mr. Tiedrick, he is a uppity muckety-muck in the Republican Party. So I'd like to ask the council members how many of them had testimony that was contributed to by the interim manager, because I don't think that they came up with that stuff on their own. Only the last council member speaker showed the class and wisdom to not fully engage in such a fiasco. And in a display of cowardice, no opportunity was offered at the meeting for public participation. So that's why I'm down here now, trying to get the word out. And actually, I think it was an illegal meeting, because I think Virginia law says that when the government officials like to get together in more than two, that it's got to be a formal meeting. So I'm wondering whether they violated the law by doing what they did. Now, I suspect that they are, weaseling around the law to say that the press conference wasn't a public meeting, but it wasn't just a press conference to outline the term sheet. The council people ran off the mouth and gave their opinions, lambasting the other two groups. And that was not a good idea. So the meat of addressing the press release is that on May 8th, 2017, a memo of agreement was executed between the town, EDA, and county. In paragraph 2, that document states, and I quote, "It is anticipated that the loan funding would be acquired by the EDA from the New Market Tax Credit Program at 1.5% interest annually for the first 7 years of financing, at which time the town will have to secure refinancing for the unpaid outstanding debt on the town project. And in paragraph 3 it states, the town will fund to the extent legally permissible 100% of the EDA's debt service through an annual appropriation and expenditure from the town's adopted budget. I'm hoping people are going to be able to understand what I'm saying because I still have got some neurological damage from the stroke. But I mean, you can choose to lay back in a corner and pull your covers up over your head, or you can get back out in the game and do what you can do.
In there.
So
well, you used that word anticipation, and that's really what this press conference was. Nothing but an anticipated loan. They don't have a loan yet.
Well,
that's anticipated.
That was my next comment. The most operative term in the previous language is anticipated, and the definition of anticipated is not the same as guaranteed, and thus the 1.5% rate was not certain. And I've challenged the council to produce a document that shows that they were guaranteed that rate. I want to see something from the New Market Tax Credit that said, we're going to give you this. The bottom line was they went on the word of Jennifer McDonald, who was promoting that, but they criticized the EDA for all their problems and relying on McDonald to represent them. But what did they do? They took her word for it. Well, that doesn't work in business and formal society. If it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. We're not in the 1800s where a handshake and a nod is a deal, because people don't have the same degree of integrity today that they do back then. There's too much greed.
Or moral obligations.
That's a good way to put it. I'm not quite the wordsmith that you are.
Well, they said they didn't have a moral obligation, so
yeah,
but they backpedaled on that.
I'll get to that too. Shortly after that agreement was signed, the town was advised that in all likelihood it would not qualify for the New Market Program tax rate by Brian Phipps, who was extremely familiar with that program. And the town was advised it should take advantage of a 2.65 interest rate, which was then available. But the town chose to be arrogant and roll the dice on qualifying for that 1.5% rate, which was subsequently not available. And recently, a council member declared the town had no legal or moral obligation to pay for the police department loan at a rate different from the 1.5% rate. But the language just read is evidence showing that declaration to be an untruth. I guess that only in a politician's mind can a signed, written agreement to meet a financial obligation not have to be honored. And furthermore, to have the audacity to consider such poor judgment is a qualification to represent the town citizens as their mayor. So at the press conference, multiple council members emphatically claimed that the EDA was uncooperative in attempting to resolve the police department debt, which was also untrue. I personally have interviewed Doug Parsons, and that EDA director, he indicated the town was offered an option through Mayor Tewalt to finance the police department debt at 2.25% interest rate earlier this year, because that was halfway between the 3% loan they currently had and the 1.5% of the tax credit market rate. But not only did council reject that solution, but there was even a suggestion of censoring the mayor for his reasonable attempt to discuss settlement options independently with the EDA. That's pretty sad. I mean, this guy, Gene's trying to do the right thing. He's trying to break through the barricade between the two organizations and come to some resolution in the interest of the public. And what's the council do? They try and slap him down and criticize him. That's just a perfect example of the council we've got to deal with today. So, council asserted that the EDA did not exhibit any good faith effort to negotiate the matter without acknowledging that they had a multi-million-dollar suit active against the EDA for over a year. So only a fool would expect the EDA to trust discussions with this council when they were being sued by that same entity. I mean, what kind of crazy logic is that? Let's work out a deal, but we're going to sue you anyways.
Well, and we did have a response from Jeff Brown over the weekend, and we posted that video as well. People can see the EDA response to the or explanation of what had happened at that press release as well, and the documentation, excuse me, that you present showing the 8.4 and the 8.9 million dollars. Is one of the council members was adamant that didn't know where the $500,000 came from.
Yeah.
And it's quite clear.
Yeah.
On the documentation.
And you know what's sad about this whole thing, Mike, is that the people now serving on the EDA board, stepped up and stepped right into the chaos and put themselves at risk. And the council is refusing to deal with the people who are trying to do the right thing.
Right.
They've been straightening things up. So instead of giving them accolades, they give them criticism.
Well,
what does that say about the council?
This new EDA board is, even though they're being sued by the town, they're still out there working for the town, promoting economic development within the town limits of Front Royal.
Exactly. The town has been critical of the EDA, saying they didn't represent the town, but I think I looked before, and it was something like 27 of there was 27 properties the EDA was marketing, and 22 of them were in the town.
Yes, exactly.
So here they are, they're beating them over the head while they're trying to work for them.
Yeah, yeah.
Just lunacy. So, and while there were many EDA attempts to discuss the police department with the town never showed itself to be a good faith negotiating partner, but instead promoted conflict instead of cooperation. Those clowns wouldn't understand good faith if it smacked them in the face. So, like you were mentioning before, the council members also cried crocodile tears at not having any explanation regarding the difference between an $8.4 million construction cost and the total $8.9 million indebtedness the EDA needed to recover for the police department. However, the filed EDA countersuit clearly details the amounts that total the $8.9 million figure. Plus, it wouldn't take a rocket scientist to conclude that the $500,000 difference represented the debt service that the town had previously agreed to in the memorandum of agreement. So, it's just nuts.
Well, and I tried to explain to people that two things. One, the EDA got a new loan, and from the original one was 3.725, and they got it reduced to 3.0. And construction phase money is always more expensive than permanent financing.
Absolutely.
And three, the town was free and clear to go anytime they wanted and refinance the debt.
Exactly.
They weren't locked into using that credit line from the EDA. They could have easily done anything they wanted if they had any.
Surely could have. Nobody was handcuffed.
That one was handcuffed.
And you know what?
It was all, they were all waiting for the magic bullet of saving $3 and $4 million off the new market tax credit, and the councils in this current one and the past one just really refused to listen to the experts, to the science.
Well, it's nice to hope for the best, but you got to prepare for reality.
You have to prepare. So what were they doing? There always should be a plan B.
Well, you know what? This actually turns out to be a good deal. The deal that they got. They haven't published all the details of it yet about all the money they're going to save, but it's a good deal for everybody because the bank right now is sitting with an unsecured loan with a person who got the loan who doesn't have a lot of assets to try and recover their loan amount. The town gets a good deal because they're going to get a good interest rate, and then the public gets a good deal because the matter is resolved and there's less contention.
Right.
So
and hopefully we can look for the future.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, I wouldn't put any money on it.
Well, hopefully a new town council and a new mayor will do like what the new Board of Supervisors did.
You got
get the
that
ball
right.
rolling, because I think the Board of Supervisors has restructuring
Yep.
and new people had made a major change on how the county does business.
Yep. Yeah, I'm so happy with the new Board of Supervisors.
And the new EDA, and hopefully a new town council
Yeah,
will
we'll
do the
straighten
same
that
thing.
group up and we'll have a new trifecta.
There you go.
So, all right, now I wanted to address the efforts by several members of the council and the Board of Supervisors to identify a solution to the town's debt, because they talked about that. Those representatives, and that was Cheryl Cullors and Dolores Oates and Holloway and Lori Cockrell. They sat down and tried to work something out in the background, which makes sense. I mean, these people are saying, let's not be stupid, because stupid is continuing to do the same thing expecting a different result. So let's talk about this, offline, and discuss some ideas that maybe people wouldn't feel comfortable discussing out in public, and see if we can get a resolution to this. So what happened there is that those representatives received criticism publicly, and specifically from Supervisor Tony Carter, and he's a piece of work, as to the inappropriateness of the effort by that Ford group to, come up with a deal, some better provisions. And he was complaining about possible lack of transparency. Well, it's rich that he would talk about transparency with all the backroom deals he's probably been involved in. But as Councilperson Cockrell recently opined at that meeting, when you can't get through the front door, you sometimes need to try the back door. Sounds like reasonable behavior to me.
Well, except the council should be working in the open.
Yeah, right. All the backroom stuff they've got going. Poor
And
Gene.
That's where we got into trouble. There's just been too many backdoor deals and good old boy networks.
Exactly.
And that it's time to have some transparency in our government.
And some new blood.
We talk about transparency, but we haven't ever seen it.
We want some people that don't have these old alliances established and friendships where you buy my bullshit and I'll buy yours.
Right. Well, what they've done is they've leaned on these closed meeting rules, and I've looked into that. Some states, for instance, even North Carolina, and you compare, say, North Carolina to Virginia, it's day and night by what they can discuss in closed meeting. Very little.
Yep.
Here, Virginia's quite broad. And, so
the bad characters never want you to see in daylight what's going on in the darkness. So from the effort of that foursome, language was drafted solely by the council. They didn't collectively draft that first language about that agreement. The council representatives did it behind closed doors on their own. And then from that language, that solely draft document that was produced in early August protected all the town's interest at the expense of everybody else. So after I saw that draft, I contacted the chairman of the board and told him my opinion was that that document was not in the best interest of the county citizens and it should be summarily rejected. And wisely, the Board of Supervisor chairman contacted the town mayor and told him they weren't going to go with that agreement. Subsequently, a second draft was prepared that was more reasonable, but because it continued to be biased towards the town interest and did not address the town's full loan obligation, it couldn't be approved either. It wasn't as bad as the first one, but it was still bad.
Well, one thing, remember, when we're suing each other, we're suing ourselves.
Exactly.
The town is in the county. Town citizens are county citizens. And regardless of which way lawsuits goes and amount of money's collected,
you're paying on both sides.
We're paying it on both sides. Don't make any sense to me why we just can't work it out.
It's so easy for politicians to waste other people's money.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm not too sure that, I'm not even going to go, better not go there.
Please no. Please no.
Yeah, put myself at enough risk as it is.
We want to keep this civil.
Well, so I wanted to move on now to the comments that were made at that press conference regarding the CARES Act funding. When the county initially offered a reasonable option which enabled the town to independently manage the distribution of financial assistance to affected businesses within their borders, the Board of Supervisors was accused of having offered them crumbs. We're insulted that you would offer us this money. Considering that the county was under no obligation whatsoever to provide the council any funds, the town's response represented nothing short of disrespect and demonstrated bad faith. My expressed advice to the Board of Supervisors then was to solely distribute the CARES relief assistance to businesses without any involvement with the council. But in a concept of hopeful cooperation, another option was finally arrived at that everybody seemed to be okay with. I still didn't like the way it turned out, but that's the way it is. I'm not the king. I don't get to run the show. However, more recently, the interim manager representing the council complained that the documentation requirements were onerous, even though they were consistent with the documentation requirements being observed by the county itself, when such requirements were meant to ensure that neither the town nor county would be exposed to any financial liability regarding the approved usage of CARES funds. This being just another example of arrogance by the town, which brings just more embarrassment to our community. If certain council members had real integrity, several would apologize and resign in the town's interest, but no one should hold their breath. A lot of people on that council in it for themselves and not representing the interest of the citizens, but that's on the town people and the council people, because as citizens, we get exactly the level of government that we vote for. So you got to pay attention and listen to what people are saying and make sure you're getting the right people in there to represent you.
Well, I got an email from a reader the other day. It says, well, can't you just give us a paragraph on the qualifications of these councils? I don't have time to research and listen to videos and things on the council member. It goes like that same point. You can't, we live in a 30-second soundbite world, and people want that, they want the whole world's
They're
problem
lazy.
solved in 60 minutes like on television. And it takes time and effort
to research everything.
Research it, and we've tried to, make an opportunity to every candidate.
Sure.
All 8 council members running and the 3 people running for mayor, and so that the public can get an idea of what is involved in their what's their vision, what's their plan,
Exactly.
and why should you vote for them in the upcoming election. We got a response from one person that's not going to participate so far because they're just too busy, and
They must be too busy to represent the in public too.
I
Then too.
won't say that, but I'm just saying they're just. So
I will.
But we're too busy. We can't take an hour out of our time to come in and let the public be informed of what's going on. So
I've made that same response to people on Facebook. Where they complain about, not being able to figure out everything. And I said, I tell you what, if it's important to your life, then it becomes a priority, and you'll spend the time to research and make an informed judgment. I said, if you're not willing to do that, then sit down, shut the hell up, and live by the rules that the rest of us create for you.
that's right.
Because
That's what happens.
I don't have any sympathy for those kind of people. Get involved, spend the time to make your contributions and make your wisdom available for others to consider, or sit back and don't complain.
Right.
The last thing I wanted to address was the permanent town manager saga, the never-ending saga. Previously, a consultant qualified 2 finalists, and they were subjected to thorough interviews by council members. Even though at least one of the 2 finalists was well qualified, council chose to continue the search and justified their decision that the best applicant did not possess the age and managerial experience they wanted. As a result, it was necessary to continue the services of the interim manager, even though he was a controversial figure and did not enjoy the full support of all town citizens. You would think they would have jumped at the chance when they had good candidates to pick somebody, because the consultant had put a guarantee in their contract that if the guy doesn't stay around or doesn't work out for 2 years, that we'll, for free, run the process again and get you somebody else. But that wasn't good enough for this council. It is rumored that the last finalist was such a flawed candidate that when the jurisdiction he then managed learned that he was interviewing for the town's position, that he was promptly offered a substantial inducement to not quit and go anywhere. So he must have been a pretty good cat. Now you can come to your own conclusion about whether this was a fumbled opportunity and yet another example of poor judgment by this council. And it has also been suggested to me by somebody that the council was never sincere in obtaining an outsider for a permanent town manager, but was using this false interview process to not find a suitable candidate and to use that as an excuse to hire the interim manager permanently and construct a lucrative contract with such an outrageous golden parachute that would discourage any future council from undoing their bad deeds. While the interim manager has publicly stated no interest in a permanent position, I wonder how many trust the integrity of that statement. Only time will tell.
Time will tell. Now, these processes, to me, have seemed like they've been just drug on.
Yeah.
And if you wait long enough, people that are looking for jobs in this position
Find something
aren't going
else.
to wait 3 and 4 and 5 months
No.
to decide whether you're even going to interview them or not. They're
Exactly.
constantly looking, and they're out there in the market, and a lot of the people drop out because they've found previous employment.
Well, it also tells them they're going into a jurisdiction that doesn't have their stuff together.
Well, maybe
And
some of them have
wanna-
voluntarily dropped out.
And why do they want to impugn their resume with having association with a bunch of idiots? So hopefully after the November election, a council of different composition will show itself to be more attuned to citizens' interests and demonstrate an attitude of cooperation versus conflict, and hire an outsider as a permanent town manager that all citizens can trust, respect, and be proud of.
Amen.
Yeah. So we just got to wait. We got to wait till November and vote and keep the pressure up. Don't let these people get off and do what they're going to do without pressure.
Well, we don't have to wait. We can vote today.
I already did.
That's right. Early voting. You can vote early until the end of October.
I was concerned that something might happen and I wouldn't make it till November, so I said, I'm getting my marker down right now.
You're going to double down on that stroke. You're going to make sure that if you get another one, you still can vote, right?
Hey man, I never was a Boy Scout, but they had a good motto: be prepared.
Exactly.
And that's what I try to be prepared.
Well, I appreciate you coming in, Gary. Also, if you have comments you want to make and you're interested, that's what Town Talk's all about, is to bring the people available in our community, people in our community that have something to say, people of interest, people that are concerned about their community and want to make Front Royal and Warren County a better place.
And I'll offer to debate anybody on any town or county issue anytime.
Well, and you would be, I know you would, and he does.
I don't have all the right answers, so I don't want people to get the idea I'm promoting that. But, I research things and I come to an informed decision. I try and use the critical thinking ability that my scrambled brain will allow me. And if people aren't willing to do that, then they need to just sit back and take the advice of people who have demonstrated at least a modicum of wisdom.
Well, and it's true. Gary has actually changed his mind a few times.
Don't let that get out, man. I got a reputation to maintain.
But seriously, we appreciate your opinion, Gary. I guess we could use a disclaimer. The facts and the things you've heard are not necessarily represent the facts of the Royal Examiner, but
Yeah.
But we do appreciate people coming in and telling us how it is. We have several other community involvees. I don't know what else to say, but want to come in and speak to us, and we'll give them that opportunity.
The framers of our country wanted a participatory government.
Exactly.
So if you want to be a patriot, if you want to be a true American, then get in the game.
Well, hopefully we'll be able to facilitate some town hall meetings going on in the future, and the new council will participate. The people I've talked to that are running want to encourage this participation.
Good idea.
Ahead of the time of the day we vote on it.
Yeah, I'll be there.
I know you would. I know you would. All right, again, thanks, Gary, for coming in. Appreciate all you do for our town, even
Thank
though
you,
you
Ron.
live in the county.
Yeah,
You live in the county.
That's right.
We'll give that disclaimer.
the town is an integral part of the county, so you can't discount them.
Well, I say that Front Royal is the heart and soul of Warren County. So
Yeah,
that's my
I'm not
line.
much of a soul man, but
Well, I understand that. But it is important to the county, and it plays a major role. Again, thanks so much, and I appreciate it. And again, if anyone has any thing that they want to participate in, just send us an email, news@royalexaminer.com. Thanks again.
okay.